Welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about Anduril, Flame of the West. My name is Trevor Barrett and I am a bladesmith full-time. And in honor of the Lord of the Rings sequel series, The Rings of Power, being made by Amazon, please Amazon, don't mess this up. Please don't mess it up. In honor of that, and with high hopes that they do well, we're going to talk about some of Tolkien's most famous weapons. That being, number one, Anduril, probably the most iconic blade in all of Tolkien's Legendarium. And also, keep in mind, I'm actually forging Anduril, so if you want to see the whole process, check it out on my Patreon. But today we're going to talk about the lore. Now, it's very commonly understood that Anduril was reforged by the elves and then given to Aragorn, who then used it in the Third Age to overthrow Sauron. However, it didn't start with the elves. In fact, it was forged originally as Narsil, and it was forged by a dwarven smith, Telkar of Novigrad. In fact, Telkar was so incredibly skilled that he was only outmatched by Feanor and possibly Celebrimbor. And these are two extremely famous elven smiths. Feanor crafting the Silmarils, which the Silmarillion revolves around. So he was an incredible smith. So right up there was Telkar, this dwarven smith, and he forged in the First Age lots of things, including the sister blade to Narsil, but he forged Narsil. Now, throughout the ages, eventually, Narsil found its way probably to Numenor at some point, but then at some point, towards the Third Age, it was then wielded by Elendil. Now, Elendil, along with Gil-galad and along with Elendil's son Isildur, which we recognize, that's a very common name, they went against Sauron in the battle, the last alliance of elves and men, went up against Sauron, fighting the forces of Mordor. Now, of course, we also know that there were birds and beasts and dwarves actually on each side, and there's a lot more going on to it than what we see in the movies. So the movies did a really great job. Now, what happened with Elendil was that him and Gil-galad both had a sort of 2 versus 1 duel against Sauron. Now, in the book, in the movie, Elendil kind of took a hit from Sauron's mace and went flying and died. And then Sauron stomped on the blade and broke it. At that point, Isildur did a wild swing and chopped off Sauron's fingers. It's a good scene, it's a very good scene, but in the book it happened a little bit differently because Elendil and Gil-galad both pretty much defeated Sauron, sort of. And in that battle, that 2 versus 1 battle, Elendil eventually died, succumbed to his wounds, and the blade, Narsil, was broken underneath him, I believe. At that point, as Sauron was wounded, his son, Elendil's son, Isildur, who can we just say, was actually a very honorable, noble man, but he made a few mistakes. The movies kind of do him dirty like that, but that's okay. He then grabs the broken sword, Narsil, and he uses it against Sauron. Instead of a wild swinging action, just sort of trying to protect himself, he actually used the sword to sort of execute Sauron, because he decisively chopped off Sauron's fingers, which severed the ring from him, and then, of course, we know led to his sort of defeat. In that sense, it was defeated, but he wasn't destroyed at that point. So, then, after that, a bunch of time went by, Narsil and its shards, though I believe in the book it was just broken into 2 pieces, but anyway, it then went to Rivendell, where eventually, for the War of the Ring, it was then reforged by the elves into Anduril, Flame of the West. It is an iconic blade, and it is absolutely gorgeous. One of the things I really appreciate about the way that they made it, and they adapted it to film, is that not only does it have a very interesting, very cool looking fantasy feel, it also has an extremely realistic construction from its weight and its length. It would be a perfectly functional blade in a historical setting. Just is very fancy looking. So they did such a great job, And if you want to see my attempt at reforging this blade, fully functional, make sure you follow my Patreon. But this is just a short dive into the lore behind Anduril. If you liked it, let me know. If you'd like to see more Lord of the Rings content, diving into the lore and other things like that, you got to let me know because I absolutely love it. I've been a fan since I was a small child. I was raised on The Hobbit and I watched the movies eventually when I was 13. That's when they came out, and I had already read the books, and so it was an absolute huge life-changing moment for me as regards fantasy and being introduced into Tolkien's Legendarium. I loved seeing it then. I love seeing it now. I have extremely high hopes for Rings of Power. Please, Amazon, listen, don't mess this up. Okay, you got one shot. Okay, anyways, that's what we got. Let me know if you want to see more of this Lord of the Rings content, especially from a bladesmithing perspective. So we've got Sting on the way, we've got Anduril on the way, we've probably got Glamdring on the way. So a lot of different things we're going to forge, and I'll show you a lot of it here on YouTube, but we'll also be showing you the behind the scenes there on my Patreon. Go check it out if you want. Make sure you like and subscribe to see all of that stuff coming up and more. Hope you like it. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.